Hey, what's up, y'all? I'm Taylor. Welcome into today's video where we are exploring Encanto in our Catholic Perspective series, where we look at things from pop culture and see how they impacted us personally, spiritually, how they connect to our faith, and how they might not. So today, we did something a little different with this one. Usually, it's either just me talking or me and one guest. But I put out this thing on Twitter. I was like, hey, who should I talk to about this? And a bunch of different people were suggested a few times. So we got them. We brought them in. The first one that you're going to hear is with Pablo. She's a Catholic speaker of Dominican heritage. So she talks about how this, she's perfect. She talks about how this impacts her life, culturally, spiritually. Another person who I have known of for a long time, but never really got to meet is Shannon Last. She's a friend of a friend. She talks about it from a faith perspective and being a mother. And then finally, Dr. Hector Weir, who I've played video games with for a couple of years now, but I've never talked to about anything really substantial because of, talking during video games. But I didn't even know this. He is a doctor and professor of Hispanic studies. So I talked to the three of them. If you would like to jump to a specific one, we've got the timestamps down at the bottom if you're here for a specific person. If not, enjoy all three of these different perspectives. I share a little bit about, as well. So 3.5 different perspectives. Hope that you guys enjoy it. Know that we are going to go into spoilers. So if you have not watched the movie yet, you might not want to watch this unless you don't care about things getting spoiled. All right, you guys enjoy. Pablo is here with us. Who are you? We have met through friends of friends. The first time we've actually talked, we've answered each other's responded to each other's Instagram stories and stuff before, but we've never actually talked. So who are you? What do you do?
Yeah. So hello. First of all, so good to officially meet you. Way better in person. Well, you know what I mean, via the Zoom world.
Yeah. People actually say this is the best way. In person's a little too much with me sometimes, so this is the safest.
We'll build up. The next step is we'll build up for it.
Right.
So my name is Mari. I come from, born and raised in Miami, Florida. My family is Dominican and Palestinian. So my grandfather was born and raised in Bethlehem, which I think is super cool.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun, right? And so what I do, I travel. I'm a speaker, but also I was a youth minister and morality and sacraments teacher for 8 years at my old high school, and campus minister, and recently started working for the Evangelical Catholic, where I help parishes and universities grow in evangelization. And I love to eat. I always say that because I feel like it's a very important part of who I am. And I love Jesus. But if you think about
first, yeah.
The way that I say it is Jesus makes himself present in food. So I can technically say that they are one if I put the Eucharist in there.
Yeah, that's very smart. Very smart. We're talking about Encanto today. Initial thoughts on the movie. We're gonna get into some nitty gritty things, but just kind of your first initial thoughts on Encanto.
My initial thought was, this is a masterpiece. The movie ended and I was just kind of staring, and I was processing and didn't fully understand what to do. So for multiple levels, I had been hearing about Encanto for a while because the man that plays Mariano is, my sister's in the music industry, and the man that plays Mariano is Maluma, who my sister manages. So I've been hearing about this movie for a while. Yeah, I've been hearing about this movie for a while because of my sister. So she's like, oh, he's in this new Disney movie. It's super cool. Da, 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 da. But I didn't really understand the gravity of I don't think he even understood the gravity of what he was in. So that's one of the cool things that I love. They got Carlos Vives in there. They got Colombian artists, music artists, to represent and to be present. So it was a lot of celebrations of that, but I wasn't expecting the depth of the movie and just all the things that it covers in this one fun and serious and clever movie.
This could be dangerous because you've already mentioned a character that personally, the person who played it, or at least connected with them. So who actually was your favorite character in the movie?
Okay, I mean, Mirabel obviously is amazing, and I love her because she is just kind of figuring out who she is, but she understands there's more than her gifts, and she is in this journey. So I relate to her for that reason, but also Luisa with the pressure aspect is something that I personally relate to. But if we're talking cutest, most fun character that I think is adorable, I want to put in my pocket, I'm going to go for Antonio. Is that his name?
Oh, I think so. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I want him. Like, he is so precious, and I want to put him in my pocket. I just said 3 of them, but they each are for different reasons.
That's
so
fine.
We'll take it.
Luis is my favorite because of the pressure thing, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I'll go ahead and just give a little spoiler alert. The Luisa song was my favorite song in the whole show. This is our segment where we are actually talking about Bruno. We have to talk about Bruno. We're breaking the movie's rules. So favorite song for you in the movie and why?
Okay, mine's a different one. And mine is Dos Oruguitas. I love that song. I don't know. I think, and I will say the Spanish version is way better than the English version. So if you were only hearing the English version, it just sounds, and the words are not translated as well in the English. But the storyline of that song, of these 2 caterpillars that are falling in love, but they have to kind of let go of each other to a certain extent to help each other grow. It's so intense and kind of sad, but the way that it's sung, and I'm thinking of, I mean, obviously a big theme of the movie is immigration and having to go and take your family somewhere else. And my family came from Dominican Republic, and I've heard so many stories of all these families coming from different areas that were so difficult that I think there's just so much beauty and depth to that song, and talking about love, and love involves sacrifice. And so that's my super deep, I can listen to this for hours song. But my second favorite song is your song, Pressure.
Oh, yeah.
It's just tick, you're just like tick, 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 never stop. You're just like, yes. I don't understand how, I mean, we don't talk about Bruno as a great song. I don't understand the level of obsession that people have with it.
Thank you. I thought I was I tweeted about that, and I thought I was alone. I
don't get it. No, I'm sorry. I think I read somewhere that it's like the number 1. Is it true? The number 1 Disney song? Is that accurate?
Yeah, it's like the number 1 on the charts, which I'm like, I've got 25 ahead of it.
I'm sorry. Like, there's Little Mermaid has some jams, man. Like,
I can show you the world.
I mean, come on. But okay, I get it. It's a cool song. It's clever. Musically, it has all those different parts. I get it, but I don't. That's it.
I
sorry.
So I was late in watching the movie. I was it's one of those things there's so much on TV now. I'm like, a kid's movie, fine. But then people are like, no, like it has like adult, like grown up, grown up themes,
Yeah.
So I watched it with my kids while my wife was at a retreat. I was like, we need something to do for 2 hours where I don't have to do anything. Let's watch this movie. And the movie was like, I mean, I really enjoyed the movie, but I went in and everybody was like, oh yeah, don't talk about Bruno, is the best song. And I'm like, I heard it and I'm like, this was hyped up so much that it was just a nothing burger for me. Because everybody's like, oh, it's like more catchy than Let It Go. And I'm like, no, it's not. That song's still stuck in my head. That movie came out 7 years ago.
That is so true. We don't talk about Bruno does have a way of getting stuck in your head and you're not sure. Like, there's been times that I'm doing something totally random and it'll be there and I'm like, how did you get here though? So I get it, but no.
Right. So I wanted to ask you now about like the personal impact, cultural impact. Like you've already brought up immigration, being from a Dominican family, and I didn't know Palestinian. That's really cool. Personal cultural impact of watching this movie for you.
Yeah, it was. I think there's so much of Hispanic culture that people don't understand, and as a Dominican, someone from the Caribbean, people assume like Dominican, like Mexican, right? And I mean, I have a bunch of Mexican friends. Mexican culture is beautiful, but Caribbean culture is very different than Mexican culture, and Colombian culture is very different than our culture. So it's. I think way too many times in America they associate like, oh, you're Hispanic. Like this happened when I went to Franciscan. Like you must love spicy foods. Like no, I don't. We eat plantains. Like I don't know what you're talking about. Like when I went to Franciscan, they didn't even know what Dominican was. They thought I was talking about the order. And when someone asked me where my habit was, and I was just like,
my parents are Dominican, so like, oh, scandal.
You're not understanding. So I love that this highlighted another country. I love that it was Colombian. I love that they did so much research. I don't know if you know this, but every single room in Encanto is inspired by a different area of Colombia.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, super cool. So like they did so much research. They really dove in. Colombian music is so incredible. Carlos Vives is one of my favorites. So even though I'm not Colombian, I have a lot of friends that are, and I felt like Colombian is more close to Caribbean. So it just felt more my style, and the colors and the music and all the different aspects. And like I mentioned before, the immigration thing was huge. And I wasn't just thinking about, because my family came over, my dad's job. It wasn't this like, we weren't fleeing, but I taught school in Miami and Doral, where a lot of people came from Venezuela. And I don't know if you know the situation in Venezuela, but it's really, really atrocious. And some of my students literally had to flee because they were attacking their family, and they had to leave everything behind. And so you hear these horrible stories that really impacted me as a teacher, to hear my students, sobbing over their country and longing to go there. So for me, I was thinking more of the people that I know that have had to flee in that way. And so I love that they portray that, so that kids can understand that this is a part of it, So for me, that was really big. And then another part, Hispanic family culture is so diverse and different. And I had multiple of my friends that are not Hispanic that were like, our grandmothers really like that. And I said, absolutely. The super strong grandma that is really intense. I mean, she's loving, but she's also really intense. And you feel like you have to go above and beyond to make her happy. And literally the other day, my nails, I don't know if you can see them. Oh, yeah. If my nails aren't red, my grandmother does not like them. And she'll like look at me with this face, and it's all, one day she likes my hair straight, one day she likes the curly, and you're always constantly trying to make grandma happy. And you see that in the movie, like that is legit my grandmother. And there are a bunch of things in my family that you don't talk about. Like, you don't talk about Bruno. There's a bunch of stuff in family culture that's like, no one talks about this person in the family, and don't bring this situation up, and don't talk to grandma about this. Don't talk to your aunt about this. And I just felt like someone tapped into my family in like a really creepy way, and showed it in a cultural, beautiful way, and shed some light on some of these things of the family aren't the best way. And we should be talking about these things, and we shouldn't just shove it aside. And so it was it hit me on like a deeper level. Like I have the uncle that no one talks about, he exists in my family, so it was very much, I looked at my mom at one point and I was like, this is our family.
Oh, like y'all watched it together? You and your mom watched it together?
Yeah. And I was laughing because I was saying, oh my gosh, the grandma is, and I said my grandma's name. And then she was saying her grandma's name. She's like, no, she's so, and I was like, this is so funny. Super strong matriarch family, incredible, have done a lot, but are really intense and can be difficult, Yeah. So long answer, but.
Yeah, no, and like it's one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you, because like I'm clearly white, like it's not a secret, right? But one thing that a lot of people don't know, just because my wife is she's very quiet, she's introverted, she's not on screens, she's loves our kids and hangs out with them, like she's Hispanic, and so like for me watching the movie, like obviously that's not my family, but it is my in-laws, right? And I started seeing, like, there were some things where I was like, oh yeah, that connects, right? But there were also some times where I was like, oh, like I understood that this was part of the culture. It's like there have been some things that have frustrated me about dealing with the in-laws and that part of the culture, because that's just not something that I grew up like. We talked about everything, like like there was nothing that was off the table. So like it was kind of like, oh, like this is a cultural thing. It's probably because the movie talked about the generational family trauma, and like even hearing you say like you were thinking about your grandma, your mom was thinking about her grandma. It's like it's a family and a cultural thing that like in every culture there's positives and negatives, right? So like it was cool for me to watch it, because I actually didn't watch it with my wife. My wife was at a retreat, so she watched it with the kids a week before. I watched it with the kids a week later, and then when she got home from the retreat, like we talked about the retreat and stuff. But then I was like, oh, like we watched the movie, and like, did you pick up these things and feel these things? She's like, yeah, absolutely. So it was kind of interesting to kind of be like I've got one foot. I'm on one hand, I'm an outsider, right? But on the other hand, it's like, well, I'm kind of in it too, So
you are.
in it without understanding it. So
Yeah.
her family is from Mexico. She's third generation here, I believe. So they're they're American, but have been from Mexican descendants. So it was an interesting experience for me and for her and I to talk about it after, especially with the when something bad happens. Like that's been big old thunder that just happened at my house.
Perfect timing.
It's terrifying. Yeah. Oh no, maybe I shouldn't be telling this story. But yeah, like some family trauma that like nobody talks about, and that's been incredibly frustrating for me, because it's just like, I mean, people hurt people, and like I feel like we need to deal with it, which is like kind of the sweeping it under the rug thing. So it's been frustrating, but it was also like, oh, like this isn't an isolated incident.
Agreed.
Okay, so what about the faith aspect? So like obviously this isn't a Catholic movie, but there's some themes in there. So from a faith perspective, was there anything that really stuck out to you that you were like, wow?
From a faith okay, so I taught juniors in high school for 8 years, right? And a big thing that I teach them is about identity. And they are very big on like, you are what you do. And so I love the aspect of everyone's given these gifts, but you are more than what you do, right? And every single character had to kind of learn. And you saw that was one of the things that I loved about Luisa's scene, because she was freaking out. And she's like, who am I without this, right? Like, who am I if I can't carry things? And even with the other sister, that's the perfect one, right? Like she was excited when she did something that wasn't quote unquote perfect, right? And it's
right, yeah.
It's these beautiful moments of you are you, like you are son or daughter of God, and you are you. And yes, the Lord can give us gifts, but even the gifts, like we need to be able to use them properly and recognize them. Yes, serve others, but we need to never lose sight of allowing the Lord to really love on you and show you who you are and your identity. And it goes so much more than if you can shoot some hoops or play a cool instrument or do whatever. But if you really know your identity in Christ and you know who you are, then the gifts are an extension of that. And then you can really live them out in a beautiful way. And so for me, that was like a super huge theme that was so profound. And then towards the end, like that moment, or for Mirabel to have that moment of, she had to go through this whole journey of not thinking she was enough and all these things, and then recognizing that she was perfect just the way she is. She's exactly what that family needed, right? Just by being herself. Like that's it. There's like, you just need to be who you were created to be, and you'll set the world ablaze, right? St. Catherine of Siena. So that aspect was just so beautifully shown in the movie in a fun but deep way. And it was funny, I was talking to my goddaughter about this, who's 7, 8. I forgot how old she is. She's great. Like, I talked to her and I was like, so what lesson did you learn from this? And she was looking at me like if I had 5 heads. And she's like, that's really good songs. And I was like, no.
Right, yeah.
Come with me. And I talked to her about that. And I talked to her about gifts and not being able to compare yourself and knowing who you are. And she's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So it's something that just had so much depth to it. And it's said in such a beautiful way that, I mean, I think it'd be good to kind of point it out to kids, because some kids are not going to really understand that, but to go there with them is just such a beautiful opportunity to take this to the next level.
Yeah. So. Yeah, it was good. Okay. So the big question, where does this rank for you amongst Disney movies? Is it your number 1, number 4, number 6, number 100? What is it?
Listen, I can't rank movies. I think it's very stressful.
Put you on the spot.
If we're being completely honest, it's almost like I have 2 lists, because I can't put Encanto with Little Mermaid or The Lion King or Latin. Like, to me, they're just 2 completely different eras and they shouldn't be compared. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, the classics are the classics. Don't mess with it. Don't touch it. They're over here.
I know what you're saying. What you're saying is that I'm feeling that you're copping out. That's what I'm hearing.
I'm 100% copping out. Yeah. You are correct. I will say this and Moana, out of the newest movies, are my favorites ever.
Yeah.
I'll say that.
Yeah.
I'll say that.
It's interesting because you brought up the classic movies, and I feel like lesson wise and like depth of the movie wise, I feel this is one of the first Disney movies in a while that feels like the old classics.
Yeah.
They feel like the old classics because like the Lion King, Aladdin, Little Mermaid, like they had these deep meanings, and I feel like some of the Disney movies the last few years have been a little shallow. Just like they've been fun, but like this had some real depth of like, oh wow, like that. That connected with my real life, and I'm an adult. So.
Mom's crying in the corner, like yeah. Feel seen. You don't understand what's going on. Yeah, it's a lot.
Exactly.
It's a lot.
The kids are looking at me like, "Why are you tearing up? Leave me alone." Okay,
this
final
is
thoughts.
So beautiful. This is my childhood. You're missing out.
Yeah. Final thoughts. Anything that I didn't ask you about that you wanted to say about this movie?
It's just an incredible movie. And I think it's one of those that the more you watch it, the more things you see and the more it can speak to you. And that's why I love it. The music is incredible. The people are awesome, but there's so much depth. And I think it's one of those that I'll rewatch and take to the Lord of like, God, what do you want to speak to me in this? Which is so funny, but I'm telling you, Encanto is a beautiful, beautiful way to do that. So
yeah,
go watch it if you haven't. Get on it. Okay, thanks.
Okay, thanks. All right, how can people connect with you? Get to know you.
You can go to maripablo.com or Instagram maripablo25.
Awesome. Mari, thanks.
It was great to see you. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Shannon Last, I have heard so much about you. I know that Father Anthony is a huge fan of yours and that y'all are friends and y'all have hung out together, but we have never met. So I DM'd you, thought, hey, you want to come on? And here you are. So nice to finally actually meet you. So tell us who you are. You're still kind of new to me. You're one of those, like, it's kind of like the like positive enigma. It's like I know good things about you, but I don't know much about you. So who are you?
Well, so that's already an improvement on what some people's impression might be. This is good. I am a friend of Father Anthony and Father Harrison. Actually, I sort of made them be my friends. I mean, I don't think they had much. I was very persistent. Yeah. We're good buddies now. And then I introduced them to my husband, and the three of them were just, house on fire, love each other. So it's been really fun getting to know them over the past 3-4 years. I am a mom of 4. My kids are 13, 11, 8. Nope, 9. She just turned 9. 13, 11, 9, and 5. And I live in Northern Virginia outside DC. I am a former speechwriter. I still am, but I work for myself now. I don't commute anymore up there, thank goodness. And so I work from home as a writer and editor part-time, and I am currently homeschooling 2 of my 4 kids, which is a very unlikely outcome for me, but it's going. Yeah. So yeah.
Do you ever write speeches for your kids? Like, I love my mother. Like, make them say stuff like that.
I should. No. Although my oldest is applying to high schools, and so he's had to do a few essays, and he had to write like a confirmation essay, and so he'll put it in a Google Doc and send it to me, and I just look at it and I'm like, buddy, what was this, like 22 minutes worth of effort? He wants to get back to practicing his guitar. So I help him, but they're mostly on their own, at least at that point.
Your speeches haven't been for your kids. From what I understand, you have written some speeches for some very important people.
Yeah, I mean, depends on how you define important, but right. Yeah, that's kind of more for the most part. That's mostly past life. The clients I have now are not necessarily household names, but
I thought you were going to say my clients now are not important. I'm like, don't worry, I'll edit that out.
No, I love all my children equally.
Okay, so we're here to talk about Encanto today. So initial thoughts on the movie.
I love it. I didn't expect to love it because the trailer was terrible. It was really bad. I didn't see it in theaters. We watched it. We have Friday night party every Friday night, and we sort of circulate choosing a movie. So I chose this, and I don't think anyone was too excited about it, and then we all wound up loving it. But I do think that it rewards rewatching and re-listening, but I sort of think it actually requires it because there's so much going on that it just can fly by you the first time through. So But I loved it. It's become a family favorite, and we listen to the soundtrack all the time.
Yeah, it had a big impact on me, which is like, what, I wouldn't be recording a video about it if it didn't. But I in doing these interviews for this video, I have realized I probably need to watch it again. So it's funny that you mentioned the rewatch, and it's funny too because I think a lot of us as adults were kind of reluctant for whatever reason to watch it at first, and then we finally got guilted into it in some way, and here we all are saying how much we love this movie. So things that we loved. Who was your favorite character in the movie?
So it's hard to pick. I think there were like 12 of them, and they are all kind of wonderful in their own way. But I would have to say that I really like the grandmother. And I know that maybe people do not love her because she is a little bit... I've heard people say, no, she's actually the villain, which I totally disagree with. But she's complicated. She's shaped by just horrific trauma as a young woman. She faces all of this stuff as a young mother of triplets, which, I mean, come on. And she builds up this community, and she holds on to this way of life. And I think I don't know that I see myself in her so much, but I see the potential, I think, that we all have from time to time of thinking that we are, if we aren't doing everything exactly right, everything is going to fall apart. And of course, you see that play out in the generations underneath her kids and grandkids. But you see that her heart is completely in the right place. She just stops understanding really what the miracle is and starts depending way too much on herself. And that kind of distorts her relationships with everyone. And she becomes, I mean, she's harsh, and she's difficult, and she causes pain for them, but it's not because she's actually a natural tyrant. She's just so afraid. And I sort of love that about her, and that she's able to face that at the end.
Yeah, you are the first person that has said that she is the favorite character. But hearing you say that, it's like, I wouldn't say she's my favorite character, but I also wouldn't call her a villain, right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting because like some of the most famous Disney characters are the protagonist and the villain. Like there have been some great villains, and like I never thought about it. There's not really a villain in this movie. There's just a regular human being who has done great things and who has made mistakes, which is literally all of us,
Yeah. I've seen some discourse about how first Encanto was a terrible or a failure because there wasn't enough sex or romance. I was like, what? Okay.
They're children.
But also someone was like, it's a yet another Disney movie without a meaningful love story. And I was just like, I'm sorry, the love that laid down its life, and the love and the family that sprang out of that act of sacrificial love. I think that counts as meaningful. Just me. And then there's like the discourse on how it's not really good because there's not a villain. Don't we make villains anymore? And my husband and I were talking about this. He also has a podcast that's like mostly movies and pop culture. And so he was discussing it with his two co-hosts. And I knew exactly where it was going because the two of them, one of them was like, I don't even know what happened in that movie. This is just magical people. It was hard to follow. And the other one was like, it was fine. There should have been a villain. And my husband, I'm just laughing. And he's like, you two obviously didn't come from broken homes. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
The villain is life. Like, like it's trauma. There are these things that happen to you, and if you're lucky enough, you can avoid a lot of them. But life is finding your place in the world is tough. It's kind of under the best of circumstances, and so the minor villains, of course, are the marauders at the beginning who are forcing them to flee, but they're not major characters, and the rest of it is just kind of dealing with what life throws at you.
Yeah. Wow. That's really good. We'll get into more of the deep stuff first, but we're going to take a little diversion here and talk about the literal entire reason why I watched this movie. The only reason why I watched this movie is because everywhere I went, in person, everywhere online, Instagram, Twitter, all I could see was Bruno, Bruno, Bruno. And if we're being honest, I thought it was another like Let's Go Brandon thing, like meaning for somebody else. I didn't know what it meant. I really didn't know what it meant. And then so I was like, who is Bruno? Like, are we changing it? Like, And then I finally find out that's the movie, and somebody that that knows me very well is like, watch the movie. And like the fourth time, I'm like, fine, okay. And I watched it with my kids. And here's the thing about Bruno. We're going to talk about him, even though the movie says not to. So two things. What is your favorite song in the movie, and why is it not Bruno? Because that song is not good.
Hard disagree. It's good. It's not the best.
Okay.
My favorite song is Mirabelle's Waiting on a Miracle. Because I think in that song are most of the deep themes of the movie. Love it. I do like the Bruno song. It's a little bit, it bears re-listening also. It reminds me a little bit of the song Nonstop from Hamilton, where you sort of get everyone's perspectives one at a time. And then there's that layered, they're all singing their own thing at once, and which is a neat way of telling a story. However, you have to listen to it over and over to follow. So I do love that. I love the character of Bruno, but his song is not the best.
Yeah, I love him. So why do you like Mirabelle's song?
Okay, so I love it. Hold on, I have some notes here on Mirabelle's
nice
song. I know. I think partly what I love about it is that it shows this both a sort of an incredible receptivity and also boldness. So I kept thinking through after I watched it the first time, what kept coming to me was the idea of ask, seek, knock. So if you want something badly enough and you're bold enough to keep asking, finally, hopefully you'll get it. And so she's had this life where she grows up and she's the one who, quote, doesn't have a gift, which is also baloney, but we can get back to that.
Right.
And she, when she sings that, she sort of steps out of the role of, I'm happy to be on the sidelines. I don't feel bad about any of this. I'm just as special because I'm part of the family, all of which is true. But she sort of looks up at the candle, at the source of the light, and she's like, I'm not fine. I'm waiting. I'm still waiting. I've been waiting. But it's not complaining. She talks about what she would do. And all of those things are the gifts, a version of the gifts her family has. She would move mountains. She would heal. She would create beauty, whatever. So she has this willingness to serve and to be a part of it. But the moment when she just says, come on, I'm ready. I've been patient and steadfast and steady. Bless me now, like you blessed us all those years ago. It's just like, I don't know. It's almost like the Cana moment where it's like, okay, well, I guess we're going to start now. Here it all comes, and things start happening from there. And I just love that about her, because she doesn't do it in an entitled way whatsoever. She's just like, all of her quiet suffering and trying to figure out her place has been leading up to that moment. And I love that.
Yeah. Lord, I see the good that you are doing for others, and now I want it for me.
Yeah.
We've kind of alluded to it already, but just what was the personal impact that this had on you specifically?
So I definitely am in the villain is, hardship camp. And I think it really speaks to the necessity of looking at life in a clear-eyed way, about being realistic. And everybody has, I think, those moments. I think what men and women both related to so much was that all of these gifts that we supposedly have and that we're known for, are also burdens that you have to bear. And I think each one of them explains, the gift they've been given, there's a tremendous amount of pressure involved in that. Not just this pressure song is amazing, by the way, so good, but that sense of, who am I if I can't carry it all? I only have worth if I can do this thing that people expect me to do and do it perfectly. The same with the Peppa, who controls the weather. She's, whenever there's a cloud, people look at her like, come on, and she's like, happy thoughts, sunshine, that's a lot. And so each person in there, even like the shape shifting, it's like as a way of pleasing people. So I think everyone can relate in a way to the idea that we have something that we're given, but we don't always want to do it, maybe. And then the idea that if you don't sort of address problems squarely and head on, and everyone sort of has like a Bruno, right? We have that thing that we want to suppress or repress or whatever, and it winds up just like in your walls, and the rats come and start talking to you. Like eventually it all catches up with you. And so I love the idea that even though she the grandmother, when this all happens, her sole focus is on trying to create something beautiful and life-giving out of it, that she's not healed. And until she can go back to the root of that trauma and look at it for what it is, no one can move forward, and the cracks will come no matter what. No one else can patch them up. It has to get blown up in order to be rebuilt. But we spend so much energy, I think, in life trying to patch the cracks instead of just letting things explode and getting new wineskins at the end of it.
Yeah.
I just mixed so many metaphors.
Yeah. It's funny because I was tracking. I was
I'm
just
like,
about
there's
2
a
seconds
Death Star
late.
in there, and there's like the wedding at Cana, and I'm sorry.
No.
So many things about this just really spoke to me. But
it's good.
that like intergenerational trauma, if you don't work out your own crap, your kids or your grandkids are going to have to do it. And it's just going to be hard for them. So you might as well do it. Otherwise, you wind up telling them that the cracks in your life are all their fault. And then you have to go sit down by the river and relive everything and blah, blah, blah. Right. So.
Yeah, I've talked a lot about the pendulum swing. It's like the things that, like, maybe we wish our parents did more. We really focus on those, but then we miss other ones, and our kids are going to have different trauma than
totally. That's totally right. And I think that's one of the pitfalls of parenthood. As soon as you realize, like, the goal is not to make mistakes. If you can just lower the bar immediately to, I'm just not going to make those mistakes. I'm going to make different ones.
Yeah, exactly.
Those ones were bad. They messed me up. If I could avoid those, then their therapy can handle, whatever.
Right, exactly. For me, one of the things that I noticed about this movie, I didn't realize it during it, but thinking about it after, was all of my other favorite Disney movies, they go far and wide. Like Lion King. Like, yeah, it's set at Pride Rock, but he goes off somewhere else. Mulan,
Moana.
Moana. She goes off. Mulan is there with her family, but then goes off to the war camp. Aladdin gets thrown away from Agrabah and into that, whatever. They're way far away. This family. This whole movie is just set at this one place with this family. They barely leave the house. And even when they leave the house, like one time, it's just right down the road. Right. So for me, It was like thinking about like the importance of, especially in Hispanic culture, my wife's Hispanic and I'm clearly quite white. So this is like, it was interesting seeing like that family aspect of like the movie didn't even have to leave. And the whole movie itself was this importance on family and being together. Yes. And like, I'm watching this, literally I watched this with my kids the first day that I spent like the whole Saturday with them. I didn't have to work. I didn't have to travel. So I came from like this busy where we weren't always together. So that hit me later on in the day, just this emphasis on family and sticking together and being together, even with the good and the bad.
Right. And they can't leave. That's like one of the things I didn't pick up on right away is like when at the in a weird way, you have to get all the way to the end of the movie to understand the beginning of the movie, because when the grandfather turns and faces the people pursuing them and lays down his life, we don't know why the miracle happens, right? But all of a sudden we see the mountains literally rise up and encompass them. So it creates this sheltered place that they just stay in. So it's a friend of mine wrote about it, sort of like the Benedict option, but since the Benedict option is bad, because if you pull up your ladder behind you, you cut yourself off from everything. And so that happened, including cutting themselves off from the past. And hence, when the cracks show, you see the mountains split. And at the very end, when she and her grandmother, Mirabelle and her grandmother sort of reconcile and have their moment by the river, the butterflies swarm around and they're sorry and they understand and they look out on the landscape and everything starts to be rebuilt, including the house in the next scene, but the mountains still stay split. So there's this like, now there's an opening to go in and out of that life.
Nice. I didn't even think about
really,
that. Yeah.
It took me a while. Also, sometimes when I watch movies with my kids, I'm also, like making popcorn or handing out Kleenex or whatever. So it took me a couple watches to understand. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
But I think that like to me the best sort of line that describes that is in Isabella's song, where she and Mirabelle are singing, and Mirabelle is saying, all I know is, it seems like your life's been a dream. All I know is the blossoms you grow. So all I see is this beautiful, impeccable, shiny surface. And as Isabella is starting to discover, holy, I can do all this unexpected, asymmetrical, but still beautiful stuff, she says, how far do these roots go down? And I just every time I hear that, I'm like, yes, that's the whole point of the movie, is you have to and she says, how far can I rise? How far can I go? And I just feel like how far she can go, or any of them can go, is directly inversely proportional to how far they're willing to dig deep. How far will they go down? And maybe I'm really overreading it. I know I got a little invested in this, but it's only when they do that things start to happen. I'm gesticulating wildly here. Sorry.
You're so excited. You're throwing microphones around.
I am. So.
Yeah, no, that's great. So watching this as a person of faith, was there anything else that really stuck out to you as I know this isn't a Catholic movie, but that really stuck out to me, or something, that wasn't, you can't use any of the 18 analogies you used earlier.
Okay. I'm going to try. I'm going to steal a page out of Father Harrison's book, literally. So, because what hit me most of all was it was a very sacramental worldview kind of a movie, in that we have all the beauty of creation and this beautiful landscape, and then all these, from the flowers to the, all the things there are meant to lift us up into the divine, right? So we use these created things to help connect us to the invisible. And I feel like there are so many of those tangible symbols, and the candle is obviously there's more than one allusion to light in the Bible. I'm not sure if you knew that.
I've heard one or two. Yeah.
There are a couple, but some of the things that struck me are you're the light of the world, and you're not supposed to hide your light under a bushel. You're supposed to put it on a lampstand, and so let your light shine, and blah blah blah. It doesn't say that in the Bible, but you get my point. And also, there's nothing that's hidden that won't be revealed in the light, and that's what happens. All that stuff, poor Bruno peeking into the kitchen from his little, just trying to stay connected, because that's his own act of sacrifice. He gives up his place so that Mirabelle can have hers. And there's all these things that have to unravel for them to be able to rebuild. So I love the candle image for that. And that when it goes out, it has to go out in order, to be relit. And also this sense of one Lord, many gifts, or one body, many gifts, many parts. I just got that really wrong, but you know what I'm talking about.
Many parts.
Yes. But those are even the readings in the last couple weeks. It's just, there's every single part is necessary and is equally important, whether or not it's visible to you, and whether or not it seems like something you'd want to show. You have to have it. And those things, if one of them is out of whack or is disconnected, then nothing works. So, excising Bruno isn't, first of all, he's not, where's he going? But he's not really there, excised. He's still there. And until that healing happens, the family isn't going to be able to function. So I loved that idea of all creation blessing the Lord, and light and darkness, and the animals in Antonio's room, and all of that, but also that sense of we're all members of the body of Christ. And then, as I said before, the idea of the door being just stand there and knock. Everyone has, my Father's house has many rooms. We all have one. Sometimes it's not immediately obvious what your gift is. Some people just seem to get it. Some people have to work really hard to get it. So
I feel like Mirabelle a lot. Where's my door? Why did I get a door?
Yeah, man. Jeez.
I'm guessing it might be similar to your favorite song, but maybe it isn't. Favorite single moment from the movie.
This is just a funny moment to me. Right after she finds the vision, they all find out that she's found the vision, and they're trying not to tell each other. or they're trying to hold it together because what's his name is coming to dinner so he can propose. But of course, in this family,
Hunk man, that's what I call him.
Yeah, yes. So like, where Dolores can hear everything, and the as they're sort of sitting down to the table and passing the food, and they're all looking at each other with these wide eyes, and they're like whispering. They cannot keep it together, and Abuela's down at the other end trying to play hostess, and they're all just coming apart, and Mirabelle's, there are cracks appearing and things are spilling and people are falling down. I just love it because it's that, like, we've all had a Thanksgiving dinner like that, where you're just like, everything, this is bad. There is no recovering this meal. Someone's got to do something outlandish to try and distract from what's happening at that end of the table. And I just found that very charming. And the poor, sweet, really dumb, but loving boyfriend is just like, I just want to propose. Like, I don't understand what all the drama is. Why are you lying on the floor? I love it. It just made me laugh.
Yeah, for sure. It was a good moment. I'd forgotten about that. But I did think about, like, bad family dinners or something like that. It's very funny. Okay, so we're getting to ultimate rankings. Where does this movie rank for you among Disney movies?
Okay, so this is a little bit weird. I would say that Moana is my favorite of the sort of this generation movies. I think the more that I think about this, I think it is equal in ranking for me with Moana and Frozen, and I actually think that there's a way that you can read them as a trilogy, even though they have different creators, obviously different artistic intent, blah blah blah. But I think there are a lot of similarities, and I kind of like thinking about all of the layers that you see cross all three movies. So I have a whole theory about that. I don't know if we have time.
Yeah, we're getting into, like, I've seen, like, deep theories about how, like, Anna and them's parents are the same people as, like, the Little Mermaid or something. I've seen stuff like that.
Oh yeah, so I remember that. It was like the ship that went down, Ariel explored. I don't know how people can watch closely enough to see those. No, but the idea being that, similarly to our earlier point about there being no, like, obvious villain, like Prince Hans is a villain, but he's, like, also just a sort of a putz. He's not, like, a real threat.
Right.
And so there's a lot of work being done by antagonists there, but all three of those characters are burdened by gifts that are also curses, and trying to desperately to keep everything together. From like the conceal, don't feel with Elsa, and then Moana having to deal with her dad's trauma by, you have to save the island, but by the way, you can't leave the island, but by the way, it's dying, but by the way, you can't leave it. And she has her grandmother sort of connect her back to the past. So all of that is like, they can't move forward in terms of like saving their people, whether that's their family or the island or, whatever Elsa and Anna land is called, Arendelle, until they can turn and look at the trauma that happened earlier and sort of find a way to embrace it and transform it. And I love that.
I'm a big fan of Encanto. I'm a big fan of Frozen. And I'm going to tell you a secret just between you and me. Never seen Moana.
Oh, okay. You are going to love Moana. So you could totally do that whole, like, this is a very Catholic movie, which of course it's not. None of these are Catholic movies. But like, I've had many fun discussions about, like, there's a rooster in it. That's very Peter. That's very Christological. Like, you could find all these elements about restoration of, memory and identity, and there's all this great stuff. But there wasn't as much of peer pressure to watch that movie. It's good.
As
you would
Encanto.
love it.
So now I'm getting peer pressure from you.
Yeah, it's really good, and it's a quest movie, but it's and that one is like it's a quest, but exterior, but also really more interior, and like fitting those things together. And there are just a lot of parallels, I think.
All right,
I think if you liked this, you'll like that.
Next weekend I'm home with the kids. I'll do. You gave me the new homework.
Plus, it has The Rock in it, and he's very funny.
I do love The Rock.
He's awesome.
The only scene I've seen from it is when, like, the tattoos are moving on his body. I'm like, that's a very Rock thing to do.
yeah. He plays that well. Yeah, it's good.
All right, so final thoughts on Encanto. We're wrapping up.
I thought those were my final thoughts, and we should have me shut up. But, I just have so many thoughts. No, I just I loved at the very end. So the movie starts with the grandmother saying, "Open your eyes," and of course, then like all hell breaks loose. And at the we circle back at the very end when she realizes, she sort of restores the family's identity to them as they're building this new house, bringing everyone back into the light, and now they're all like magicless. They have no gift because the gift is, each other or whatever.
Yeah.
But
the friends we made along the way.
yeah, exactly. And so they build this house, and I love that they give Mirabelle the doorknob back with the little M on it, and she says, "What do you see?" And when she sees a reflection, she sees, all of herself, not just whatever was supposed to be this one discrete gift, but that you are the gift. Each life is necessary. Each life is a gift. And I like that I don't know, there's something to me about the idea that she's the one who has to turn the doorknob and open the house for everyone, at which point it becomes enchanted again. But she's not the key. Like, I thought that was kind of a neat touch. There's not a keyhole. It's just a doorknob. And I don't know. Maybe that's a doorknob is just a doorknob. But I think like that Mirabelle, like, look at the beauty in you, but just in all of this, and that she's the one who can forge that path into the next stage for her family. I loved that. So,
beautiful. Well,
all in all, you could tell this movie made me very happy. It's not a perfect movie, but but it there's a lot there. Like all good art, you can go back to it and find different things in it each time that evoke something for you, and then figure out why did that make me think of that, and where do I go from here? So
yeah,
on that, from that measurement, it's a winner.
Yeah, very sweet movie. Very sweet. Speaking of very sweet, it's very kind of you to come and join me today.
Thank you so much. This was really fun.
Yeah, for sure. How can people get in touch with you? I know on the Twitters. Anywhere else?
No. But that's my only social media, and it's so bad for my soul. So I'm trying to take it easy on the Twitters, but I don't usually last that long with silence. Withdrawal.
I know what you mean. Shannon _Last on Twitter. You're a fun follow. It was fun to finally talk to you. Thanks again.
Thank you. It was so much fun.
All right. Great.
Bye.
I want to introduce Dr. Hector Weir to you. I didn't even know. You're just your username on Xbox to me, but I hear that you actually have accomplished things in the real world. So Hector, why don't you introduce yourself to us?
Well, sure. I'm Dr. Hector Weir. I'm a professor of Spanish and Humanities at Wharton County Junior College. I got my doctorate at A&M in Hispanic Studies, and it seems that you chose my favorite kind of topics to talk about today. So
I didn't even know A&M. I'm right next to A&M. I didn't even know they had a Hispanic Studies. It seems pretty different than a lot of their other categories. Yeah.
Yeah, I always joked around saying that I was a baby from the department. I got most of my degrees from there.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of grew with that department. It's been I think about 15 years now since they started. Given the time kind of starts running together after so many years. But let's not talk about my how bad I am at playing video games, because
yeah. If you were as bad at this as video games, you wouldn't be here. Let's just put it that way.
No. Yes, I don't think that I would have made it out of high school. Jeez.
Right. Cool. So we're talking about Encanto today. Like you've studied. Obviously you are Hispanic. You've studied Hispanic studies. You've watched this with your kids.
Actually, yes.
So we're talking about Encanto today. So just kind of before we dive in, just initial thoughts on Encanto. Did you like it? What was your that sort of thing?
Okay, so first, I'm Venezuelan, so we're right around the border with Colombia. So as soon as I heard that this movie was going to be set in there, and actually as soon as I saw the arepa in the in the previews, I really started looking forward to the film. So let's say that I had very high expectations about the movie coming in before even the get-go, mainly because of how much I liked the last time that they even did anything related with Latin America with Coco. So I would like to say that yes, the film actually met my expectations. Given perhaps maybe I was a little bit too critical of the movie at first because being an insider to the culture, it's kind of hard not to judge every single, or let's say not to analyze every single thing from the minute detail, but I definitely really enjoyed it. I especially like some of the animal like characters that they showed up there. Like I like to say that if I were to have a spirit animal, it would be the capybara that is in there.
Oh
And
yeah,
it's really
yeah.
exciting. So, initial thoughts. My first thought when I was approaching the movie was actually I decided to watch it in Spanish. That's
Okay.
like something that that might be a little different from anyone that you've ever talked to. I don't know, maybe like in my head I thought, this movie's set in Colombia. I wonder what the experience of watching it will be in Spanish. And actually like watch it twice. I watch it in Spanish and I watch it in English. And with my kids, I watch it in Spanish because we have the rule that any movie that we watch at home is in Spanish first. From the kids bilingual, so
I grew up in Lake Jackson, where Selena did a lot of her growing up. So we watched Selena a lot in English and in Spanish at school. So maybe this is the new version of that for the new generation and not the millennials, because Selena was a long time ago for these kids.
The funny thing that you mentioned is that pretty much on the very first day of class, one of my favorite students, just kind of goes and asks, "Profe, are we gonna watch Encanto?" And he's all excited. His eyes are sparkling, and I'm thinking, like, what are you talking about? Like Encanto? And he bugged me so much that I just had to watch the movie eventually, and I gave in. And
we both got worn down after a long time about watching the movie.
The thing was that I resisted it because I wanted to actually set up the time to just actually have the movie experience. Maybe take the kids to the movie theater and watch it with popcorn and whatnot. But I said, you know what? Let's go ahead and do that.
So, favorite character for you? Who is your favorite character in the movie and why?
Ooh, beside the capybara?
Yeah.
Actually, that's the first comment that I told my students. I said my favorite character was that animal just sitting there all stoic, just kind of looking at it. I love that. No, actually, I would say Mirabelle. I really enjoyed her. I don't know, there was just so much to that character. As I'm watching it, from the get-go, I'm thinking, okay, well, should we say spoilers at all before?
We covered it. Yeah, we're going all the way into it. Yeah, spoil whatever you want.
Okay, so the very first question that I had is like, okay, why hair? Why would she why would she not have any, let's call it, gifts? Or, well, does she have any gift? That question. I mean, I was just very intrigued by her. And I have a couple of insights into her as the more that I think about her character and everything. But there was just so much to her. And also it's as I'm thinking about the movie, talking to you, and also as I was talking to my students, just how does she compare in that next generation to her grandmother that basically starts everything like that kid, the question of of what effect she's having within the family, in the family dynamics, and what ends up happening towards the end with the renewal of the whole family and the renewal of the magic. So there's a lot of that. Given me being the oldest child in a family, in a very large family, I think that I identify a little bit more with her oldest sister. I'm horrible with names. Please help me with the
Luisa, the strong one.
Yeah, Luisa, the strongest one. I don't know, having the responsibility of carrying everything in the family, making sure that I'm the first one up, the last one down. Having the what you might call it, I don't want to say the responsibility, but having the guilt of trying to fix anything that would be breaking in the family, and just feeling that burden. I really could relate very much to Luisa, at a personal level, but intellectually, I just think that the most interesting character was Maribel.
You said something that made me think, because you were comparing Maribel to the grandmother. Am I misremembering? I don't think the grandmother had a gift, did she?
No, and actually, that's the first thing
yeah.
that's the first thing that I like started thinking about it. It's like, okay, well, what is the gift of the grandmother, of the abuela? And as when I watched the second movie, I thought, well, in my bad memory, the first thing that I'm thinking is, well, whenever she's having the conversation by the river with Maribel, is that it's her gift manifesting itself, like as she's sharing the memory. But it just really helped me down in me that actually she's almost like the initial glue of the family. Like the gift of her was family itself, right? Like that's the right way of putting it, right? The family was the gift, and her, let's say, well, they call it in Spanish, they call it don, which is, I like that word a little bit better than gift, because it's almost that there's almost a religious dimension to like having a don as opposed to a gift. It's like something that is like handed down to you somehow. But and that's like where like it really started like seeing the parallel, like really starting to dwell deeply in that parallel between Maribel and her grandmother, which to me it's not surprising that that everything, like, I mean, the whole storyline, the whole plot of the story is how Maribel is trying to save the family, much like the grandmother was trying, well, the grandparents were trying to save their little family, escaping that horrible persecution that they portray in the first moments of the film. So
yeah, I just never thought about that. Because I guess there's just so much magic at the beginning with the house being created and stuff that I just kind of missed that. Like she, like you said, she's the abuela is the glue that holds the family together, and then when that starts to crack, that's when Maribel's, like, she has that same gift of caring for and uniting the family. So so that's characters. Let's do songs. We've got to talk about Bruno. That's what we're doing. So, favorite song for you in the movie?
Oh gosh. Okay, there's I just really like the Bruno song. It's just so like catchy,
Yeah.
Like and it just keeps on resounding. But there's two things. So, well, and here's like a criticism that I do have. I really like the initial song in Spanish, right? Like this weird madrigal, right? But criticism, did you have to say like madrigal in every single moment of that song? I mean, to me, that's like that just, I couldn't get over that. like when, especially after watching the movie for the first time in Spanish, right? Like, they're pronouncing everything like, and the madrigal is a Spanish name. And it just, to me, I just couldn't. I love the first song where they're basically explaining all of the, where Maribel is explaining all of her family, right? And, there's something really awesome with that song. It's like perfectly fitting for the, like in the first couple of minutes of the movie, just really sets it up. And it sets up also the how do you call it, like the tension within the family, like an internal tension that is like happening within her, saying like, well, I love my family so much and they're so wonderful, and where do I like fit within this family, despite the fact that she's actually a pretty awesome singer, like in the actual narrative.
They all are,
right?
yeah.
They all are, right? But to me, that was something that I couldn't get over. So I would say like that's the second song, right? Like, even though it's awesome, just the fact that it's not that little thing that just really bugged me. So I'm sorry, Disney. That song, even though it's the opening, it's not like the greatest that you have in there. Bruno, on the other hand, has everything, like in multi-language, because I was just listening to the song also in Spanish, thinking, I wonder like how the experience of listening to that song again in the English versus Spanish version, does it stand like side by side? And it does. So it's similar to the way, I think that before we started regarding the interview, you like had asked me, like where would you put this song with some of the other quintessential Disney songs, right? The experience that I had as a kid listening to A Whole New World, for instance, and like with Aladdin, right? That transcended languages, like
right.
that, where if you listen to that song in Spanish, English, and whatever language, just really like transports you into the story. I think that that's the same experience that you would have with that song. Another song that like is very like iconic for Disney is the Let It Go, right? Even though it's, there's it's almost overplayed by now, right? But if you listen to the song in the multiple languages, it just really, there's like a magic behind it that it doesn't matter what language you're doing.
Yeah, they had that on the DVD. Like,
exactly.
We watched it. It's funny. We were stuck on a bus with a youth group thing, and we watched Frozen when it came out, like the summer after it came out or whatever, on the bus going to some church event. And after the end of the DVD, it played through all the credits, and the kids wanted to watch the credits, so we're like, whatever. And it played the song in like 8-9 different languages, and like it was so much fun. We were all trying to sing because you learn the chorus after a while.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like that. And I feel that that's similar. That will be a similar, I guess, like viewer response to this song, because first it's just so catchy, and I don't know, it just really like it gives you another dimension to that family as they're explaining what like that relationship that they have with their, let's call it the weird uncle, the weird misunderstood uncle. Like and I guess it's another dimension of that of Maribel, that she's actually the Mirabel. So I keep on calling her Maribel, like Mirabel, right? That she was able to literally understand the heart of every single one of the characters, right? To the point that even the little kid, was it Miguel, right? No,
Antonio,
yes, little Antonio. The little Antonio just like gets like holds her hand, which he asked her, like, please take me to the door. I mean, that just really shows how deep of a connection she had with every single one of the characters, even with the one that like she absolutely like dislikes.
Right. Bruno for me was overrated. It's all I heard about. Everybody's talking about Bruno for a month. I finally watched the movie, and it wasn't even the best show in the movie for me. Like it was Luisa's song for the same reasons that you were saying earlier, like being the oldest child, feeling like I got to be like, strong all the time, and putting forth that strength to kind of, falling under the weight of like all the stress and stuff, but still got to push through. So yeah, Bruno didn't live up to the hype for me.
Well, I just think it's like a super catchy song. But I do want to talk about that Luisa song. Like I was talking to my student about the sexual word, the student that wanted to like discuss the film. Something that I really enjoyed from that song, like at least like I don't know if you noticed as you're listening, like when the song's starting, Luisa's voice is extremely masculine, to the point where it's showing like the strength, trying to show like almost like an Hercules kind of like, right. Like, and actually there's a parallel that she makes, but as the song is starting to progress, you start seeing how like you're almost like peeling the levels, like the onions on that girl, how like her voice is starting to become more and more and more feminine, like giving like more dimension to this, like to this woman, showing that there's a lot more to her than just the like strength, and that there's like a sensitivity and a love that it's almost overlooked. And I would dare to say by everyone, except for Mirabel, that just embraces her at the end of the song, saying, like, you're carrying so much, and to me, that's just so beautiful in it, because yes, you do have, even in the Latin American family, the quintessential Latin American family, you do have that strong woman, like you do have that. Yeah. You have like people, I mean, in my family, like I joke around in my family because actually like within my family, we had all female cousins where it was only primas, right? It was only my male cousin, my cousin Hugo and I, right? Wow. It was only the two of us, and everyone else was like mujeres, right? So we really get to see that, like the oldest cousin is almost like the strong one, right? And so we see that, but at the same time, there's like so many levels in that, on like each one of my female cousins, that I just feel that it was just really, truly well represented in the character of Luisa, especially with that song. I think that without that song, Luisa's character would just basically feel flat, and I just absolutely love that. So
yeah, it was good. So let's get into the personal impact for you. So you're watching it. So as a professor, as a Hispanic man, as a father, what was the personal impact that this movie had on you?
Oh gosh, personal impact. Honestly, I'm not quite sure. I think that it's still in process because there's so many. Like I said, like I watched the first time. What's like fun, haha movie, like wonderful, right? But there was like it was almost like ephemeral. But as I started like digging deeper, I start seeing like quite a bit of parallels within, some of my culture as it's being represented. So I'm not entirely like sure where it's going to stand, this film, like personally, like over the ages. However, for my child that is growing here in the US in a completely decontextualized like place for her like heritage, because my daughter is growing Venezuelan American, but she's, other than my immediate family, we don't really have that, like she doesn't really have that picture of the big extended family that I had growing up. Everyone kind of living under the same house, even though we didn't quite live under the same house, but sometimes it kind of felt like we did,
right.
Right? It's a really wonderful thing to have for her to see as she's growing up. And actually, let's say like I have more than one daughter, right? Like I have two boys that are growing up, but like in my case, like as I'm watching that movie with my 6-year-old, I think my like 4-year-old is looking at it and she's like, ha, bro, 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 right? And the kids, bro, no, 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 ha, chihuire, right? That's the word for capybara in like Venezuelan Spanish, right? But he doesn't really think like much more deeper. But with my daughter, it's fascinating the way that the conversation goes. Actually, like I think that you're gonna really like this. Like after we watched the movie, my daughter had like a very interesting like thing that she said. Like she went and we actually had a couple of really interesting conversations with it. The conversation that came was, hey, Daddy, I mean, all of this is in Spanish. Like, well, my daughter and I speak Spanish, but she asked me, it's like, is magic real? Like I would like to see that kind of magic, and like having that kind of conversation. It was really interesting, like especially since I'm a very, very deep, I love my faith very much. So how do you approach that conversation? And I found that it was a wonderful conversation starter with her. Mainly just going to summarize the way that the conversation ended up going. I went and explain to her that, well, we're big like C.S. Lewis fans at the house. We're big like Chronicles of Narnia like fans, like at my home actually. It's the very first novel that we read, like my daughter and I read like throughout. When I like the way that I explained to her, like imagine magic, that there's like a magic like bigger than what you can like see, right? Like that's like trying to explain like gifts, like God, like to my daughter, right? A deeper, more profound magic, bigger than magic itself, right? How do you understand that? Like, how do you explain that to a kid? So, and essentially, like, like what I ended up doing, like the way that I ended up following that movie night was watching another big favorite movie, classic movie for mine, The Prince of Egypt.
Oh yeah.
So like when we got to like talk and compare and say, okay, like think about that, like miraculous aspect, right? How do you manifest that, like, right? How do you see that portrayed like in film? So that was more or less the conversations that I had with her. So impact for me, I think that it will be, to be determined, but for sure it's definitely a conversation started for my, like, I guess the just the education of my daughter, like the religious upbringing for my daughter.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and you started talking about faith. Was there any other part of the movie that was like that had like a faith impact on you, or like a where you saw a connection between your faith and this movie?
Ooh. Well, it's easy to talk about gifts,
Yeah.
Gifts and the faith. There are many examples in our in church history where people have been given like gifts that for the bystander it almost looks like magic. Where does that where do the gifts come from? That's like a big question that tends to come. And let's break it down from the very get-go, like the way that I was thinking about that. The gifts, when do they originate? like in there, and it's almost like a grace that comes out of the ultimate sacrifice that the dad gives, right? That beautiful grace that comes and is born immediately after the father like saves not only his family but like everyone that was kind of escaping. That's the origin of the, let's call it, gifts of the dones, right? And also the question is like, what are the gifts that Mirabel has, right? And I think that that's like a much deeper like conversation, you know, to have, because that deep love and that deep empathy that she feels like for her family and like her duty for her family, that in itself is a gift that is like deeper than any kind of display of strength that Luisa can have, because literally it's what brings the family back together at the very end of the film. It's that, you know, like so that's, you know, like that's one of the dimensions. Now, no movie is going to be perfect. There are issues within the film, especially when it comes to the like with religion and faith and the portrayal of, you know, let's call it Catholicism within the film, that I think comes at one level it's a missed opportunity. I would have loved to see the priest a little bit more like engaged in some way or fashion other than just, you know, like the haha kind of moments with the like Calvice, you know, with the boldness, you know. It's especially because I would imagine, I mean, just put in the example of reset, you know, like we, like within our faith, like our faith tradition, we do have examples of men being like extremely powerful, you know, being able to lift like boulders with like Samson, right? We do have like that. And like the like healing, you know, like laying of hands, you know, like that's something that is within like our tradition, but it wasn't even an issue. But I think that the reason why is because, you know, this is supposed to be a popular film, and unfortunately
Catholics aren't popular.
exactly. And it's, you know, it's a good, it's okay to not be popular. It's okay to be countercultural. It's okay to not be 100% in with everything that, you know, let's call it the world says that.
Where were you when I was in junior high? I needed to hear all this back then.
Oh, it's, you know, I don't know where I was. Don't ask me. Yeah. Don't ask me to date myself. Yeah. No, but it's okay, you know, and it's okay for people to have those conversations. And I mean, I think that that there are positive things that could have been brought up in the film, because faith is a very, very important part of the Latino, Latina, South American, Colombian, you know, like Pan-American, like society. I mean, just to put it this way, like my grandmother, glue of the family, right? She prayed a rosary every single day of her life. Like I cannot remember a day where my grandma didn't pray the rosary. Even before like I had done any of my meanderings through my faith journey, my religious journey, right? I cannot remember a single instance, a day in her life, like in my life, where my grandmother wasn't praying the rosary. And I'm just giving you an example. You didn't see anything like that in the film. Even if my family is not like I'm saying, like family, extended family, like mis primas, primos, abuelo, abuela, everyone, even if they're not 100% like they don't fall 100% within the realm of orthodoxy for the Catholic Church or Christianity at all, like at large, they're extremely spiritual. You know, they believe, you know, in God, like at least in some kind of higher power. And I find that is missing from this depiction of Colombian culture, you know, and I think that is a level of it is a missed opportunity, because it could have brought so much more depth to this movie, like in, like, let's say it, you know, like in the history of film, if we're to like put it. But at the same time, its decisions, would the writers as they were like writing the plot and everything and the animations, like would it have detracted from the overall story arc? Then perhaps it would have, but I think that there could have been, just as she had little, let's call it little hints, little like winks or little, how do you call it, like Easter eggs, or let's call it, right, for Colombian culture, for Colombianismos, right? I could have seen something like that in there in the film that would have, that would have been a little more significant than just having the random church or basilica like in the background.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like what you're saying about Luisa and her gifts, because I think that's the biggest thing that connects with faith, and I think it's really interesting because a lot of times, like I hadn't thought about it until you mentioned it, but that a lot of the gifts that the other family has are very visible, like Luisa's strength and the other daughter with the flowers, and then the mom and the dad with healing, and the I think it was the aunt that had the the storm and the weather. Like those were easy to see, and I'm thinking about like the gifts that like are mentioned in scripture, like like healing, like that's a gift that you can see, and like preaching and administration, those are the ones that you can see, but like literally the greatest gift is being an apostle, like being a church leader, a leader in the faith, right? And like that's not one that you like see. That's more one that is felt, like that leadership, and like that's what Maribel and her grandma have. It's very, at least very similar. So I thought that was really interesting. Like just because you can't see the gift doesn't mean it's not there. And it's not important, because I feel like a lot of people like we all have gifts, but like the more forward facing and like ones that gifts you can see are often desired for, but yet they're all still good gifts. So the next thing, what was your favorite moment in the film? Favorite single moment? Oh
gosh. Beside the capybara again?
Yeah, I knew you were gonna say that.
Spirit animal. I'm just gonna say it's a spirit animal.
Right.
No, gosh.
The capybara one is unique. Explain why you like the capybara one so much, other than just that it's a cool animal.
No, it's just like such a random well, first the capybara is like the biggest rodent, so the fact that what's his name, that Bruno is just, there's like something about the mice, right? And like the capybara is there and he's just looking at it, and he's like, okay, well, I'm not even gonna bother you moving you. I'm just gonna kind of go around you. I don't know. It's just something that I thought that it was like hilarious, and that the fact is that it just was sitting there. It's like it just like, to me, I just really like that moment. I really, really enjoyed that encounter between Lisa and Luisa and Mirabel. Like that moment with that song, like Luisa's song, I just really enjoyed it. Maybe it's just because I just really am able to project myself into that character, maybe. Yeah. I don't know, but there's just something in that. There's like a sense of understanding of like that, of the, it's a gift, but also the curse, like of the older sibling, and almost like it seems sometimes that there's when you're the oldest sibling in a family, sometimes you're overlooked, there's like so many expectations on what you have to do. You're like the trailblazer. You're the one that like has to like pick up the slack. You're the first person that like has to, like make a sacrifice. Like, okay, I'll give you like a personal story of myself, like that just really encompasses it. So we were immigrants into the U.S. We came around 2002. I'm Venezuelan. That Venezuela kind of just imploded, but like it's another story. Start for another conversation. But whenever we come, I knew of the big sacrifices that my parents were making, right? Like, and I was very grateful for the sacrifices. But in my head, like when we would go to the, they would every once in a while they would want to treat us. Like we'll go to a restaurant and I knew that going to a restaurant was a big gift that they would make for us, right? But at the same, and it was something that I was extremely grateful for. But in my head, I would feel guilty about all of us saying, like I know how hard my parents are working. I just cannot like reason like within my head, like justify like getting that expensive meal. And I would get something. Sure, it was a treat and something that I would know that something that I would enjoy, but I would not get the kind of meal that I would like to have. I would get one that I would enjoy, but it wasn't like the most expensive. I would like enjoy like the meal with my family, and I would take it as it is, so that my sister and my parents could have like a bigger meal. So like, I'm just giving you that as an example. So seeing that kind of understanding and seeing that embrace from the youngest daughter, saying like, you know, just that love and understanding, saying like, I have no idea how much you're carrying, right? I feel almost as you can almost feel like your younger sibling, or like in my case, my younger sister, like embracing you in that moment, saying like, it's like, thank you, you know. And I really enjoy that. I really appreciate that, because you don't really see that portrayed that often in like anywhere. You know, usually when like you have the older brother, it's like, oh, you know, like that jerk, or oh, you know, like it's the person that thinks that he's always right. Right. Or it's like, oh, it's the.
Well, we are always right.
Yeah, we're always right. Yes, you're right. You know, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. No, I'm totally with you. I felt a lot of the same ways with that character in that moment. So, ultimately, where does this movie rank for you among Disney movies?
Oh gosh, that's a tough question. I really, really love this movie. There's like so many things that are worth like put in there. I think that ultimately it will be the question will be like, will it be able to stand the test of time? I think that it will, because it's something that hasn't been done before in that way. I mean, you know, countries have been featured before, you know, like just like Coco, like Mexico, like Emperor's New Groove with Peru and Bolivia. I think that it's definitely going to be a classic, but if you were to rank them, I mean, as much as I like this movie, it's not within my top 3. You know, it's top 5, but I have my top 3, but mainly it's because, you know, some of those are the ones that I watched when I was a kid, you know, and that's where it comes. I think though that for the children in this generation, it's probably going to be like in amongst the top 3, like easily, because it has everything, the catchy songs, the awesome graphics and everything, and the memorable characters, you know.
Yeah.
Like
Bruno.
the capybara.
Yeah. You're the only person that's going to remember that.
No, but it has the animals as well. You know, there wouldn't be a memorable Disney movie without animals, you know.
Right.
But it definitely, like, I think that it definitely is going to be like a top 3 for like this generation. But if you want to know my top 3, you know, Tarzan, Aladdin, and Lion King, you know, like those 3, like to me are like, you know, and that really tells you where I am in my generation, you know?
Yeah, there's a lot to be said about that, because a lot of mine are like from when I was a kid. But what's really interesting is like, you know, like, because this is a big cultural movie for the Hispanic culture. But what's funny is I was looking back and I was like, the 3 movies that I loved from Disney, like my 3 favorites, are not my culture. Mulan, I'm not Chinese. Lion King, I'm not a lion. Aladdin, I'm not from Arabia, but I love them. They're so great.
Hey, but shame on you for not listing Tarzan there. I mean, like, there's no other movie that has like anyone like surfing on trees.
Right, yeah. It just never connected with me. Never connected.
I know. But I love that. All right.
Any final thoughts?
Oh gosh, no. Well, mainly, hey, thank you so much for doing this. I really enjoyed your content. Thank you for the opportunity of like having this conversation. Like, I know that I hope that you enjoyed it as much as I did, and I'm really looking forward to see like how this video turns out with everyone else's responses.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Hopefully it turns out good. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
No, likewise. Bye-bye.
Thank you guys for watching today's video. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please hit that subscribe button. We've got more videos coming to you just like this in our Catholic Perspective series. We've also got talks, music, our weekly podcast. You can check that all out on our channel. Hit the subscribe button, hit the bell, all of the things. Love you guys. See you soon.